Alright, during this video, what I'm going to do is, for your denim jeans, I'm going to show you how to do a straight cut waistband, as well as having a contour cut waistband. I'll also tell you the advantages and disadvantages of doing each one of these, and then you can decide what you want to do for your pair of jeans. Okay, let's take the top liner bag as well as the front pocket facing. We'll keep these together and let's move these off to the side. Go ahead and bring in your front main body. And if we look at the corner here where it's red and blue at the top of the pocket, let's match that up with the corner here as well as the top edge of both of these pattern pieces. And we'll go ahead and tape this into place. Now come over here to the side seam of the red from the main body, and there's also the side seam from the blue of the under bag. And let's go ahead and slide this over and match them up. And we'll also tape this in place. So now you can get a sense of the built-in volume here for your hand going into the pocket. Now let's take your pattern piece. We're going to turn this so center front is closer to you. Now take out your back waistband pattern piece as well as your front waistband pattern piece. What we're going to do is let's get our front waistband pattern piece back in place where it used to be here at the top of your pants. So here I have it taped along the waist right here, and here at center front. Now for your back waistband, have it so it's folded right along the side seam. And we can come up here and we can match all the way back to the top at the side seam at your waistband from the front. And then let's go ahead and turn this so we could see from center back to the side seam and all the way back to center front of the waistband. Now if you do this contour waistband in the back leading to a straight waistband on the front, you cannot wear these jeans with a belt. It won't work. If you do want to wear a belt with your jeans, then you need to make the waistband just a straight line for the full distance. And the reason being is because a belt is a straight line. It won't curve like a contour waistband. Let's go over to the dress forms and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so now we have the waistband in place. Now here at the front, I'm going to just have my waistband straight across, and it's going to be 1.25 inches. And that's the same as what I did here on this size 4. So it's just straight waistband and it's that 1.25 inch height. On these pants, what I'm doing is it's the contour waistband here in the back. So if you notice, the waistband continues cupping into her lower back. Now for these pants, she'll never need to wear it with a belt because it will fit her so perfectly. But also, she can't wear it with a belt. And I'll show you why. So on these pants here, this is a straight waistband all the way from the back. So from the back all the way here to the front. And if you notice, the waistband stays off of the body. And the reason being is because it's a straight waistband. Now if you take a look at a belt is also just a straight line. So when you put a belt here onto the body, the belt itself sticks out. So it does not contour into her lower back. If I put belt loops on this contour waistband and then she wore it with a belt, what would happen is the belt would keep pulling the back of her pants off of her body, and it would have these weird buckles in there. So that's why if you're going to wear it with a belt, you have to do the straight waistband. So you'll see here with the straight waistband, once you put your belt on there, it's going to match following along with your belt. And then you'll have belt loops on your pants. And then your pants will settle right into your waist wherever that belt is, and the same as the bottom of the waistband. So then you can see that's the difference between having the straight waistband, which is easier for construction, it's cheaper in production, and then it looks great when you're wearing a belt, versus when you do the contour waistband, which is more expensive in production because it's a curve and it wastes fabric. And then also this is a very custom fit, so it's only going to fit certain body types, whereas this you'll have more options on different body types. So you need to decide for your custom pants, are you going to wear them with a belt or not? A lot of times what I like to do is if my client is not going to wear these with a belt, I'll give them the contour waistband that turns into a straight waistband. I'll even put cute little belt loops on here, but you actually never wear it with a belt. For menswear, I'd highly recommend to just keep it as a straight waistband and to wear these with a belt, especially because men have more of a straight hips and not so much of a waist. It fits really well, and they usually prefer having a belt on and wearing their jeans kind of low on their hips anyways. Now if we take a look here at my store-bought pants, you can see that the waistband is just a straight line, plus it has belt loops, and this will go great with wearing it with a belt. A lot of times also the reason for doing a straight waistband is it's cheaper in production. You can take a roll of this denim fabric, send it out to a mill, and what they'll do is they'll cut it into 2-inch strips and put it on giant rolls for you. And then you can have a 1/4-inch seam allowance above and below, and then you'll have an 1.5 inch straight waistband. And usually in the production line, they'll have a machine that's just folding the belt and sewing it to your pants all in one shot, so it's really inexpensive. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate doing the contour waistband on my size 6 pants. Now for all of us, whatever you're going to do, if it's a straight waistband or a contour going into a straight front waistband, what we need to know is the full length of the front waistband. What we need to do is we need to add 1 more inch to this because we need to have 1 inch of seam allowance for our mock fly zipper. So do this with me now, starting from the waist. Come all the way down to the full hip area. This is going to be your zip stop, so put a nice dark square right there. Now what we're going to do is this center front, we're going to extend it out 1 more inch of seam allowance for that mock fly zipper. And down here we can square off whatever the width of your waistband is. So for instance, mine is 1.25 inches. Here's my 1.25 inch waistband, and you want it to be nice and square in this area. As we get down to the curve for the crotch area, we're eventually below this full hip line is going to be the 1/2 inch seam allowance. And now the transition between the two is just going to be a simple curve. Now take out a fresh, clean piece of paper. And over here on the right side, let's go ahead and square up what's going to be the bottom of your waistband. And make sure you're leaving room for seam allowance going below this. Now from this edge, we're also going to come back 1 inch so we know where our center front is. So this is center front, and this is going to be our zipper. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this center front here and match it up with the center front here. And then of course this is my extra extension for the zipper. And I'm going to bring this down to the top of the pants and the bottom of the waistband. And what I need to do is I need to walk this pattern piece all the way back to the side seams. Once I have this location for the side seam, we can take the back panel off of here and connect it along the side seam. And what I'm going to do is I've already folded this paper from one part of the side seam to the other part. And I can go ahead and I can just cut this extra off, and I'm going to cut it in a straight line. Even though the side seam had a little bit of shaping to it, I'm now just turning it into a straight line. I'm going to come over here to my mark, and I can put these together. And I'm allowing the contour waistband to start to blend into this straight line, and then it curves back towards center back. And I'll tape this permanently in place. So let's follow all the way along here. Again, this is CF for center front. If we come down here on our pants, this was center front on your pants. I'm going to line this up with center front. There's my extension that matches the zipper. And I'm going to walk this along the bottom of the waistband and the top of the pants all the way to the side seam. And then I know that the rest of this walks all the way back perfectly to center back. Now, if you'll notice, I have a grain line here on the center back panel. But as we move here into center front, I actually want all of this center front panel to be on grain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my grain line here to the middle of my waistband. And again, I need to know the height of my waistband. So for instance, mine is 1.25 inches. This is the full height of my waistband. And then on this new grain line, I could go ahead and put an arrowhead from here to here and here to here. And then I need to come over to the grain line here on the back, and we're going to erase that. And again, everything that we're doing right now is for those of you who are not going to wear a belt with your jeans. Once you have everything in place, we can go ahead and cut off this extra paper. And we'll tape this down in the back. Now, whether you're doing a contour waistband or if you're just doing a straight waistband, basically we're finished with this waistband pattern piece. So let's go ahead and separate it from our main body, and then we'll keep this off to the side in case we need to reference it later. Now here at the side seam, this is going to be a notch when you're sewing this back onto your pants. So let's get that notch there. And then we'll go ahead and do a notch above this as well for when you're sewing both top edges together. And then at the end here, let's go ahead and erase BK from back waistband, and we're going to rename this to be contour waistband. At this point now, I'm going to spend some time to show you how to do a straight waistband. For those of you who know that you're going to use a contour waistband, you can go ahead and skip almost to the end of the video. When I come back here to my store-bought jeans, I'm measuring 1 3/8 inches on this one, and same thing on this one, so 1 3/8 inches, 1 3/8 inches. One thing you want to know on waistbands is you don't want to make it too wide. So even if you're like plus size or mature figure and you feel like, oh, I want a nice wide waistband, actually, since we're doing a straight waistband, the wider you make it, the more it's going to be loose on your lower back. It's going to be all loose and floppy. So you don't necessarily want a wide waistband when you're doing the straight waistband. Now what we want to do is, another thing is, you don't want to have the top of your waistband is on the fold, because the fold doesn't have very much structure and it will be really warbly and wobbly. If you look at your jeans, the waistband is cut too, so there's the facing and the outside, and they're sewn and turned at the top as well as at the bottom, and there's top stitching at the top, top stitching at the bottom. All of this is giving it strength along that whole top edge, and you want to do that. What we're going to do is, for the top edge, we just need a little 1/4 inch seam allowance. For the bottom edge, we want 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I've already demoed how to do the contour waistband for your jeans. For you guys who are going to just do a straight waistband, I'm going to come back and show you how to do that first on paper patterns, and then I'll show you a quicker, faster way how you can just do it directly onto your muslin fabric and go ahead and move right into cutting and sewing. Alright, so let's catch up to where we left off. Basically, I just want to double check with you that you have everything set up the same way that I have it set up. So just double check with me now. You have your underbag taped to the tabletop. The top of your pants you're going to match here at the grain line and the top of the pocket. You're also matching the underliner edge, and then I can tape my pants down. Over here the side seams don't match. We need the main body side seam to come up to match the under pocket. And that's giving us our built-in volume. And then I'm going to tape it down here at the waist. Then we had already taken our original waistband and put it back into place. And then we have this contour waistband from the back that you learned. We're going to take this and we're going to eventually just turn it into a straight waistband. So we folded it on the side seam, and we came in here and we attached it at the waistband. Okay, so take a measurement from your center back to your center front, and then add a good 4 inches to that. And then also, so that would be the length of your paper, and then the height, give yourself a good 5 inches in height. Okay, so on this new piece of paper, come up to the first row of matrix dots from your raw edge, and make sure you have enough room so you could do 1/2 inch seam allowance going below that. And then from the raw edge here, come in a few inches. What we're going to do is we're going to square up what's going to be basically the end of our waistband. And then we also want to square up what's going to be the bottom of our waistband. Now this bottom edge of the waistband, we want to square that for the whole piece of paper. Now let's take a look back here at our patterns. Here's the center front, and this is that 1 inch extension for later on when you sew a mock fly zipper. Now this corner here is going to match up with the bottom of the waistband and the mock fly zipper. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk this straight line along with the bottom of my waistband. So it's basically the top of my main pants, the bottom of the waistline. And I'm coming over here to the side seam, and I'll continue walking this now on my contour waistband all the way here to center back. Now when I slide this over, I'm just going to write CB for center back and SS for side seam where I put those 2 notches. And then we'll come over here. This was the extension, and there's a 1-inch extension. So I'm going to come back 1 inch, and this is my center front. So again, we have the 1-inch extension, center front. I walked this all along the waist to the side seam, and I kept walking it all the way here to the center back. And when I was walking it, I was walking all along here, which is the bottom of the waistband. Now over here at center back, lightly draw a line that's square. Alright, so here you have your straight waistband, center back, side seam, center front, plus the extension. Basically, center back would be cut on the fold, and then this would go all the way around your body. Now, of course, when we do a mock-up, we might do a little bit of an adjustment here on the front pocket. You might do a little of adjustment on the side seams. So realistically, when you cut this for the very first time, you want to cut extra because you might need to add or take away during the fittings. Basically, you can get the idea where if you just measure from center back to center front plus the extension and add a couple more inches, that would be the length of half of your waistband. So you would double that to get the full body. Now the last thing we want to do is we want to determine the height of our waistband plus the seam allowance. Okay, so let's talk about finding the height plus seam allowances for your waistband. Now it's totally up to you to decide if you want your waistband to be 1.25 inches, 1 3/8, or 1.5 inches. The waistband that I'm going to do is 1.25 inches. So I'm going to start here at the bottom of the waistband, and I'm going to go up 1 1/4 inches. So this will be my total waistband. Now going above this, all we need is a little tiny 1/4 inch seam allowance, the same as when you're doing a collar at your neckline. Now going down, I'm doing 1/2 inch. This is what's going to sew to your main pants. So again, we have the width of our waistband. It's 1/4 inch above, 1/2 inch below. Alright, so here I've drawn it all the way to center back and back to here. Basically, in this instance, center back would be cut on a fold. Now, for those of you who are taking my class, go ahead and finish your waistband. And what we're going to do is we're going to name it Straight Waistband Jeans. And I'm putting my size on here, size 6, and today's date. Let's come over here to where the side seam notch is. And let's go ahead and draw a grain line right there at the side seam. And then come over here to the center back. And what I want to do is I want to label this that it's on the fold. So I'm going to write CB, and I'm going to put 3 little dots in here. to signify that this is cut on the fold. And then just to remind myself, over here I can continue writing cut to on fold. Now let's take a closer look at this. If I were to just measure the whole thing, so from the bottom of this raw edge to the top of that raw edge, basically what I'm doing is it's 2 inches total. So for instance, my waistband here would be 2 inches wide by 17 1/8. If I wanted to, I could just cut that in muslin on the fold and I would have exactly what I need to cut and sew my pants. Now, of course, like I said before, we're going to do a mock-up and we need to do some test fitting, we need to do some adjustments. So you always want to have some extra. Basically, if I were to cut out some fabric 18 inches long by 2 inches wide for my size 6 jeans, I'll have plenty extra to do any kind of fitting or adjustments. And most likely on mine, I'm actually going to make my pants a little bit tighter, so this is actually going to be even a little bit shorter. So in the end, by the time I'm done, it might just be 17 inches by 2 inches. Now with that said, yours is going to be a little bit different. But if you take a look at it, you're going to notice that it's actually a pretty simple pattern piece. Realistically, you almost don't even need to make this pattern piece at all because you can just draft this really quick on your muslin. And that's what I did when I did a demo for my size 4 jeans with the straight waistband. So let me go ahead and I'll go back to that older video and I'll show you how I did that now. Okay, so real quick here, I'm going to show you how you can also make a straight waistband just directly right onto your muslin fabric. In this instance, I have some older footage from when I was making my size 4 jeans, and I just made my straight waistband out of the muslin, and let me show you how I did that right now. The first thing we need to do is we need to know the measurement of the waistband total length. So either from your muslin or looking here, this was adding a paper draft, we can just measure from center back to the center front, double it, and then add another 4 or 5 inches. Or if you've already done your muslin mock-up and you're going to now just make a quick straight waistband, you could just go ahead and just measure the waist all the way around and then add a few more inches to that for your muslin. Now for my waistband, I just want to do 1 1/4 inches. I don't want to do 1 3/8 inches. You can choose whichever one you want, of course. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line here. This is going to be 0. And I'm going to measure up my 1 1/4 inches is right there. And then for the top edge, I want to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And for the bottom edge, I want to have 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I can measure back down to here, and I'm seeing that it's exactly 2 inches wide when we cut it. Now what I've done here is I prepped a piece of fabric that is 4 inches wide plus some extra. So this happens to be right around 4.5, 4 5/8 inches wide. So I made it a little bit too big. Eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 2 2-inch strips out of here. One other thing I want to do is, so far I've just torn this piece off. I want to go and press this all nice and flat and clean, and I'm also going to overlock the long edges. Now, of course, if you don't have the machine to overlock it, don't worry about it. Just leave them as raw edges. And what I've done is, so I've overlocked the edges, and then what you want to do is fold it so the raw edges are touching, and then press and steam and let this cool off in half. Now remember, for me, I want to end up with 1 1/4 inches total. And I added my seam allowance for the top, my seam allowance for the bottom, which is 2 inches. If I take my ruler and I'm going to line it up along the bottom edge where I have my overlocking, and I come up 2 inches, there's extra fabric. Basically, what we're going to do is we can mark this along the width that I need. I'll come through and cut this out, and then I'm going to have 2 pieces at 2 inches, and one side is already finished. So just really quick here, you can see I'm marking mine at exactly 2 inches, and then I can come back and cut this out. Ideally also, you would pin the layers together so they don't move around, and then you could easily just take this right over to the sewing machine and put in your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now that we have our 1/4 inch stitch along the top edge, basically we need to turn these so they're right side out. Now the easiest way to do that is to go ahead and butterfly press this open, and then it'll be more accurate when we start to turn it right side out. Now that I butterfly pressed it open, I also went over to the ironing board and I steamed and pressed this and let it cool off. We're ready now to fold this so the raw edges are on the inside, and you want to make sure you're folding perfectly right on the seam, and you can see all the little blue thread dots the whole way. Now I can see here if I measure down 1.25 inches is my desired height, and then I can see I still have 1/2 inch seam allowance to sew to my pants. Alright, in this video we finished making the underbag liner as well as the pocket facing piece, and then we have our top bag liner. All of this matches back to the front main body, and then we finished it up by having our contour waistband from the back turning into a straight front waistband at the front. And for those of you who are just doing a straight waistband, you're just going to make it a complete straight line from end to end. In the next video, we're going to finish up with the back of the pants by adding a patch pocket.